In Russia, the Luna-25 rocket successfully flies into space.
Space authorities say this marked Russia's first mission to the moon in nearly 50 years. More details on this later in the news. Good evening, I am Gianna Llanes.
I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. The Department of Education launches its Matatag curriculum for this coming school year. 11 Philippine government agencies join the Alalayan Exercises in Manila Bay. U.S. President Joe Biden releases federal funds for Hawaii wildfire victims. Rapper Travis Scott's concert in Rome creates tremors that injured dozens of people. And singer Taylor Swift announces something big this October. The Department of Education, or DepEd, unveils an updated Kinder to Grade 10 curriculum that significantly consolidates and revises the essential learning competencies that youth must learn in school. Elijah Villanueva tells us more.
The new Matatag curriculum is a 2-year collaboration between DepEd and various education experts, including international institutions. Implementation will begin in Kinder this year, followed by grades 1, 4, and 7 by 2024 to 2025, then grades 2, 5, and 8 by 2025 to 2026, with grades 3, 6, and 9 in 2026 to 27, and finally grade 10 by 27 to 28. The new curriculum details a reduction to 5 learning areas from 7 in the early levels, specifically language, reading and literacy, math, makabansa, and good manners and right conduct. Makabansa will include cultural awareness, nationalism, and patriotism, while higher grade levels will also have an emphasis on peace education such as conflict resolution and disaster risk reduction. 21st century skills like digital literacy will also be taught at the higher levels. The curriculum for grades 11 to 12 is still under review, with the primary goal of ensuring that high school graduates are well prepared to secure employment opportunities. Elijah Villanueva for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The budget for indigent senior citizens' social pension will be doubled to cover the increase of 1,000 pesos monthly allowance in 2024. From 25.3 billion pesos in 2023 to 49.81 billion pesos for 2024. About 4.1 million indigent senior citizens will receive 12,000 pesos next year under the approved 5.26 trillion peso national budget. The spending prioritizes outlined in the national budget serve as the foundational elements of the Marcos administration's 8-point socio-economic agenda, including the 2022 revision that also doubled the monthly pension from 500 to 1,000 pesos.
The Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development, or DHSUD, kicks off its plans to rehabilitate the Pasig River. Madrin Villar Moratillo reports.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. adopts the Department of Human Settlements and Urban Development in pursuance to Executive Order 35. The said directive designates the SUD as the head of the Interagency Council for the Pasig River Urban Development. The Interagency Council is tasked to govern the full rehabilitation of the banks along the Pasig River water system, with the aim to boost tourism activities as well as provide alternative transportation. Under the directive, the Council is required to formulate the Pasig River Urban Development Plan as the blueprint of the whole project. The SUD Chief Jerry Acusar, along with the agency's key officials, started inspecting vital areas along the Pasig River. According to Acusar, the agency has laid its plans and is set to be presented to the Office of the President. Madeline Villar Moratillo reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Commission of Election, or COMELEC, issues its updated guidelines on spending ban ahead of barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections. JD Mahinay for the details.
The Commission on Elections releases its new guidelines on social welfare projects and public works ban for the upcoming barangay and sangguniang kabataan elections on October 31st. This is in pursuant to Resolution Number 10944. The guidelines inform that national, regional, provincial, and local government units are prohibited to release, disburse, or spend their public fund for social welfare projects from September 15 till October 30th. Meanwhile, social welfare projects that will be implemented by the barangay are banned starting between October 20 and 30, 2023. COMELEC notes that the request for exemption from the said prohibitions must be submitted to the Law Department via email, personal submission, or couriers no later than September 1, 2023. COMELEC adds that the written request for the issuance of a certificate of exemption must be accompanied by necessary document requirements. JD Mahinay reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development, or DSWD, partners with the Management Association of the Philippines, or MAP, for the food stamp program, seeking to end involuntary hunger in the country. MAP is a collection of 1,100 companies nationwide that advocates for reforms that will help shape a progressive future for the Philippines. The organization will help mobilize groups and private firms in a collective and collaborative effort with DSWD. DSWD and MAP signed a memorandum of understanding promising to work together in addressing malnutrition and child stunting.
House Speaker Martin Romualdez promises to bring the economy back on track after the Philippine economic growth slowed to 4.3% in the second quarter this year. Romualdez notes the various causes for the weak economic growth, including the high commodity prices and rising food inflation. He vows to swiftly address and solve them, detailing a plan to optimize supply chains, subsidize the agricultural sector, and further support the Marcos administration's projects that would aid in the Philippine economy's recovery.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines, or AFP, is planning to deploy more ships and aircraft to safeguard the country's sovereignty over the West Philippine Sea.
Yes, definitely we have plans to deploy more ships and more, even yung mga aircraft natin para mabantayan natin yung ating exclusive economic zone. So hindi lamang po yung pagbantay dito, but we really have to establish our presence in the area.
This came after AFP's Western Commander Westcom's report detailing that about 400 foreign vessels had been detected within the country's exclusive economic zone. AFP Chief General Romeo Bronner Jr. reveals their plans to develop the country's reserve force, even reviewing a possibility to train Filipino fisherfolk to defend the country. Westcom Commander Vice Admiral Alberto Carlos estimates that around 85% of the 400 detected vessels within the exclusive economic zone are Chinese vessels, speculating that these were militia vessels taking orders from the Chinese Coast Guard.
The interagency exercise dubbed Alalayan commences off the coast of Manila Bay. 11 government agencies gathered to test different protocols, demonstrate the capability of the National Coast Watch Center to interdict maritime threats within the Philippine waters. The drill, aside from enhancing the interoperability of the participating agencies, also aims to utilize the Indo-Pacific Regional Information Sharing, or IORIS platform. IORIS is a secured communication platform donated by the European Union. This is to enable the country's forces to perform an interagency planning and coordination during times of maritime incidents. Meanwhile, Philippine Coast Guard Vice Admiral Roy Echeverria clarifies that the exercise is not a show of force.
No, this is show, of course. This is just an exercise to test our interoperability among the different support agencies.
Senate President Pro Tempore Loren Legarda calls on all ASEAN member nations to work together in developing a green economy for environmental protection that will benefit the future generations. As part of the commemoration of ASEAN Month in August, Legarda says that the Southeast Asian region must be united in safeguarding its people against a rapidly changing geopolitical situation. She emphasizes that ASEAN should not solely focus on maintaining regional security, but should also come together to promote economic growth, highlighting that unity within the organization will lead to shared prosperity for all member states.
Voter registration for Filipinos overseas is ongoing. This for the Philippine national and local elections in 2025. Jeff Sanidad tells us more.
The Philippine Embassy here in Washington, D.C. has released an advisory for overseas voters. Voter registration for the upcoming national and local elections in the Philippines is still ongoing. All concerned have until the 30th of September 2024 to file for applications for registration or certification, transfer for registration records, correction of entries in the voter's registration record, and reactivation and change of address. You may file any of these at the Philippine Embassy or at the Philippine Consulate General nearest you. Walk-ins are accepted. An applicant must personally submit these requirements: one printed copy of the Accomplished Overseas Voter Registration Form, or OVF1, original and one photocopy of a valid Philippine passport, original and one photocopy of proof of current Filipino citizenship, for example, your green card, visa, notice of action, work permit, or dual IC. For more information, visit philippineenembassy.dc.org/overseas-absentee-voting. In Washington, D.C., Jeff Sanidad for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, Prime Minister Narendra Modi addresses the Manipur conflict. Russian and Chinese navies conduct a patrol off the Pacific Ocean. And Syria's president blames Turkiye for its regional instability. Stay tuned, Mata ng Agila International will return for more global news.
Rise of streaming platforms provided a significant shift to viewing habits that challenged the traditional way we watched films and television. And there are people who possess the creative genius and business acumen to take advantage of the paradigm shift. Writer, creative consultant, director, and producer Benedict Miki is one, and the visionary behind the production company Lone Wolf Films Incorporated. Learn the business of storytelling from the director's chair here at Open for Business.
Natawa sila, kinilig sila, naiyak sila, giving people these emotions. That's what a filmmaker strives for and dreams of.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m.
Welcome back to Mata ng Agila International. Ethiopia's government say that the country's military recaptured several areas in the embattled Amhara region from local militia fighters. The military reclaimed control of 6 towns, including the regional capital Bahir Dar and Gondar, as flights were set to resume. The federal government declared a state of emergency in Amhara on Friday after regional authorities lost control and asked for help. The violence erupted over attempts by Ethiopia's federal government to disband Amhara regional forces after the end of a two-year conflict in the neighboring Tigray region. Around 20 civilians killed and injured another child during clashes with the military. Human Rights Watch has said the new state of emergency rules in Amhara, which include a prohibition on protests and increased powers of arrest, undermine basic rights.
In the latest twist over the contempt of court sentence, South Africa's former President Jacob Zuma reported back to prison on Friday, only to be swiftly released. The 81-year-old Zuma was ordered to be released in just over an hour as part of a remission process, aiming to address overcrowding in prison, which poses a direct threat to inmate health, security, and management. Zuma was sentenced to 15 months in June 2021 after refusing to testify before a panel probing financial corruption and cronyism under his presidency. But just after 2 months, he was freed on medical parole for an undisclosed condition. South Africa's prison service, which had granted Zuma's conditional release, appealed the decision, but the bid was dismissed by the Constitutional Court last month. Zuma immediately benefited from a remission of non-violent offenders approved by President Cyril Ramaphosa. The decision, meanwhile, was met with outrage by some opposition parties. South Africa's leading opposition party, the Democratic Alliance, said it would seek legal action, adding Zuma's release was a monumental insult to each and every South African.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi assured the people of ethnic violence hit Manipur that the entire country is with them and that peace will be restored soon in the northeastern state.
अनेक ने अपने स्वजन भी खोए, महिलाओं के साथ गंभीर अपराध हुआ और ये अपराध अक्षम्य है और दोषियों को कड़ी से कड़ी सजा दिलवाने के लिए केंद्र सरकार, राज्य सरकार मिलकर के भरपूर प्रयास कर रही है.
He said this is in reply to the no-confidence motion in Lok Sabha amid the opposition's calls for his statement on the violence in Manipur. Ethnic violence first broke out in Manipur on May 3 between the Meitei and the tribal Kuki communities, in which over 100 people have been killed so far, while thousands have been displaced.
और मैं देश के सभी नागरिकों को आश्वस्त करना चाहता हूं कि जिस प्रकार से प्रयास चल रहे हैं, निकट भविष्य में शांति का सूरज जरूर उगेगा. मणिपुर एक बार नए आत्मविश्वास के साथ आगे बढ़ेगा. मैं मणिपुर के लोगों से भी आग्रहपूर्वक कहना चाहता हूं, वहां की माताओं, बहनों, बेटियों से कहना चाहता हूं, देश आपके साथ है.
The opposition has been denouncing the central administration over the violence in the northeastern state and has been demanding Manipur Chief Minister Biren Singh's immediate resignation. Modi also criticized the Congress for leaving behind an unstable situation in Manipur during their regime, alleging the opposition for politicizing the crisis in Manipur.
यहाँ सदन में मां भारती के बारे में जो कहा गया है, उसने हर भारतीय की भावना को गहरी ठेस पहुंचाई. इसकी जनता ने हमारी सरकार के प्रति बार-बार जो विश्वास जताया है, मैं आज देश के कोटि-कोटि नागरिकों का आभार व्यक्त करने के लिए उपस्थित हुआ.
President Alassane Ouattara of Ivory Coast says West African leaders approved the deployment of a standby force to restore constitutional order in Niger. This is an intervention that will take place sooner than later. Kimi Oria has more details.
no details on the force nor a timetable for action against the military officers who seized control of Niger 2 weeks ago were given by the ECOWAS regional bloc. Ivory Coast President Alassane Ouattara, however, says the chiefs of staff will have other conferences to finalize things, but they have the agreement of the Conference of Heads of State for the operation to start as soon as possible. Ouattara says the Ivory Coast would provide a battalion of 850 to 1,100 men. These alongside soldiers from Nigeria and Benin and other countries joining them. He says they are determined to restore President Bazoum to his functions. Earlier in Abuja, ECOWAS Commission President Omar Touray announced the deployment of the bloc's force. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken voiced support for ECOWAS. But Blinken did not explicitly back its call for military intervention. France has also given its full support to all the conclusions ECOWAS reached. But even as the summit took place, Niger's new military rulers moved to consolidate their position and signaled further defiance by appointing a new government. A 21-member cabinet will be headed by Prime Minister Ali Mohamed Lamine Zen. Generals from the new military governing council will lead the defense and interior ministries. The coup leaders have already defied the Sunday deadline set by ECOWAS a week earlier to reinstate Bazoum or face possible military intervention. Bazoum has been detained since July 26. Kimi Oria from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The United Nations Security Council will hold its first open meeting on North Korea's dire human rights situation since 2017. United States Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield said that UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk and Elizabeth Salmon, the UN independent investigator on human rights in North Korea, will brief council members on the situation in the Asian country on August 17. Thomas-Greenfield said, adding that the Security Council must address the abuses and crimes being perpetrated by North Korean leader Kim Jong-il's regime against its own people. The U.S., who is chairing the council during this month's U.S. presidency, stood with the ambassadors from Albania, Japan, and South Korea when making the announcement. Russia and China, which have close ties to North Korea, have blocked any Security Council action since vetoing a U.S.-sponsored resolution that would have imposed new sanctions over its intercontinental ballistic missile launches. China and Russia could protest holding the open meeting, which requires support from at least 9 of the 15 council members. The Russian and Chinese navies conduct their third joint patrol off the Pacific Ocean. Russia's Ministry of Defense says that the drill involves air defense exercise. Meanwhile, crews of ships conducted algorithms of action to repel an aerial attack from a mock enemy from various heights and directions. Russia Defense Ministry notes that the joint exercises between the two nations aim at strengthening naval cooperation as subject to maintain peace and stability in the Asia-Pacific region. Venezuela celebrates a legal battle win against Portugal over sanctions and frozen funds targeting the country, recovering $1.5 billion of assets.
Venezuela no ha renunciado ni renunciará a luchar por rescatar todo el dinero que le pertenece a los venezolanos, todos los activos que le pertenecen a los venezolanos. No hemos renunciado ni renunciaremos.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro calls the decision an adherence to justice and international law and promises that the recovered funds will go into social programs benefiting the Venezuelan people.
Y en el momento que se logre la recuperación física de ese dinero y de otros dineros, eso irá directamente a donde todos los venezolanos sabemos que tiene que ir, a garantizar derechos sociales del pueblo, a garantizar servicios públicos para el pueblo.
Portuguese bank Novo Banco froze the assets due to the Venezuelan presidential crisis, where Portugal recognizes Juan Guaidó as the true president of Venezuela. The Maduro administration criticized this action, stating that they have stolen Venezuelan resources and prompting a legal battle against the Portuguese bank.
Y que nos robaron, nos secuestraron. Es una decisión absolutamente antinatura, en contra del derecho público internacional.
Syrian President Bashar Assad blamed Turkiye for the uptick in violence in his war-torn country and insisted on the withdrawal of Turkish forces from Syria. Turkiye is a main backer of armed opposition fighters who have been trying to remove Assad from power and has carried out 3 major incursions into northern Syria since 2016 as Turkish forces control parts of northern Syria. Assad, who is backed by Russia and Iran, has managed over the past few years to retake most of the territory with the help of his allies and turn the tide of war in his favor. Syrian rebels and Turkey-backed opposition forces now only hold a small northwestern corner of Syria where fighting and violence have persisted. Despite meetings between Turkey and Syria's defense and foreign ministers under Russian and Iranian mediation to restore strained ties, he was quick to dispel any rumors that of any upcoming meetings between him and Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. Damascus maintains that Ankara must put forward a timetable for the withdrawal of Turkish troops from Syria in order to normalize relations.
والأهم هو ترك القضايا الداخلية لشعوبها فهي قادرة على تدبير شؤونها. هل هناك إمكانية لعلاقات ثنائية عميقة تتجاوز العلاقات الدبلوماسية، تتجاوز العلاقة بين المسؤولين، تتجاوز العلاقة بين الرئيسين وتنزل إلى المستوى الشعبي بمختلف قطاعاته الاقتصادية والأهم الثقافية والفكرية لكي نكون وعي مشترك. عندما نقول عمل عربي مشترك ونحن في قمة فما يبنى عليه العمل العربي المشترك هو الوعي المشترك.
For the first time in more than a decade, Assad participated in the Arab League summit hosted by Saudi Arabia, marking Syria's return to the Arab fold. In recent months, Syria has also improved relations with some countries that had backed the opposition since the 2011 outbreak of the country's civil war.
Police Service of Northern Ireland, or PSNI Chief Simon Byrne, apologizes over what he called an industrial-scale breach. This is after the personal information of more than 10,000 officers and staff are posted online. Byrne claims that dissident Republicans obtained the said information of police officers proliferating on WhatsApp. The force also reveals that it was also investigating the theft of the laptop that contains information about more than 200 serving officers and staff. The breach occurred when the force responded to a Freedom of Information request seeking information from officers and staff of the PSNI. The Police Federation for Northern Ireland says that their lines were flooded with calls from worried officers following the data breach. Meanwhile, the authorities advise the officers and staff on how to deal with the said breach and the risk they will face.
U.S. President Joe Biden releases federal funds for the island of Maui that was severely impacted by the fires, resulting in the tragic loss of at least 36 lives and the destruction of a historic town.
We have just approved a major disaster declaration for Hawaii, which will get aid into the hands of the people desperately needing help now. They've lost, anyone who's lost a loved one whose home has been damaged or destroyed is going to get help immediately.
High winds from a hurricane passing fueled the brush fires on Maui's west coast. The funds will be used to supplement state and local recovery efforts in the areas affected by wildfires. Up next, More people need aid as the fire in Hawaii rages on. New COVID strain causes an uptick in COVID-19 cases. And Travis Scott triggers another Astroworld incident in Rome. Mata ng Agila International will be back after a short break. Don't go away.
Eto na, mag-tour tayo sa may-ari ng paraisong ito. Pasok na tayo. Nakikita ko na siya. Hi! Likod pa lang kilala ko ng ika.
Welcome to Alalayan!
Wow! Pia Guanos in the house! Alam niyo itong si Pia, sanay naman to sa karangyaan.
For every 9 na grade mo sa school, may back then parang 500 pesos.
Mas minimum wage na yan.
Pinagbubuti ko talaga para makaipon.
Paano nangyari naman na nagre-reporter ka sa loob ng helicopter?
It's Traffic Angel Pia here, and I see a humongous build-up on EDSA right now. Kapahala na ng mukha ko. Pag pinasayaw, game, sayaw. Pag pinakanta, singer ako, game.
So lahat ginawa mo, nakilala mo na si Mr. Mago.
Siya lang yung nakapagpaisip sa akin na I wanna end up with this guy, get married to him.
Bakit niya kailangang iwan ng karera?
Sort of like my personal time. My work time is also my personal time. It's something I do for myself.
The death toll in a fast-moving fire that destroyed a Hawaiian town has risen to 55. And Hawaii Governor Josh Green says he expects it will go even higher. Thomas I. Likeness has the story.
This is what the beachfront town of Lahaina on the island of Maui looks like from the air, just one day after a deadly inferno razed most of the community. And here at ground level, you can see there's very little left of this once thriving tourist town, also home to some 12,000 permanent residents. U.S. President Joe Biden has declared the wildfires on Maui a major disaster, and he's promising assistance.
Anyone who's lost a loved one whose home has been damaged or destroyed is going to get help immediately.
But the help can't come soon enough for people here as they struggle to deal with the aftermath of this tragedy. Lahaina resident Kakoa Lansford is frustrated.
Still get dead bodies in the water floating and on the seawall. They've been sitting there since last night. We've been pulling people out since last night, trying to save people's lives. And I feel like we're not getting the help we need.
Governor Josh Green says 80% of the town is gone. He says it looks like a bomb hit the community. The flames from the wildfire, fueled by strong winds from a nearby hurricane, moved so quickly that many people became trapped in the streets. Some jumped into the ocean to escape the blaze. The U.S. Coast Guard estimates that about 100 people took to the water, but it says it was only able to rescue about 50 of them. Many people like this resident left with little more than the clothes on their backs.
We just packed up what we could in our house, didn't get much. I left all our pictures, everything we owned, put it in that house.
Thousands of people have been evacuated from Maui, but 1,400 are still waiting at Kahului Airport for a flight to get out. The next challenge for Lahaina will be rebuilding, not only the buildings, but the economy, and that will take years. Many of the 3 million visitors that came to Maui last year made a stop in Lahaina, but now its economic driver, tourism, has gone up in flames as the historic city has been reduced to ashes. Thomas I. Likeness from Atanang Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The World Health Organization, or WHO, designates the new strain of COVID-19 as a variant of interest that may drive a larger wave of infections. According to WHO, the new Omicron subvariant known as EG5 or Ares is declared low for a public health risk. However, it appears to be better in evading the immune system. The Ares COVID strain is present in countries including the United Kingdom, China, and the United States. WHO adds that the Ares variant shows increased prevalence, growth advantage, and immune escape properties. WHO, however, notes that there are no reports of its disease severity to date.
An update now on that fire we told you about yesterday at a holiday lodge in France. Officials now say the lodge failed to meet safety standards to accommodate vacationers. Jane Kathleen Gregorio has more.
11 people died when this holiday home went up in flames. 28 guests with disabilities had been sleeping in the building when flames ripped through the structure early Wednesday morning. Apparently, the building had never undergone a safety inspection. It had been rented to groups of people by a private owner. Only 5 of the 16 people who had been sleeping on the upper floor made it to safety. All 12 guests on the ground floor managed to escape. Investigators are now working on trying to identify the bodies with DNA testing. Cause of the blaze has not been determined. Jane Kathleen Gregorio for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
9 people have been arrested after a message on the social media platform TikTok sparked a crime spree on London's Oxford Street. The message urged people to mob and loot a sporting goods store on the busiest shopping street in Europe. Anna Kui has the details.
Pandemonium erupted on Oxford Street, which normally sees 500,000 visitors a day. On Wednesday afternoon, a heavy police presence greeted shoppers. Groups of youths clashed with police. Crowds of people trying to avoid the chaos ran across streets screaming. Others rushed into shops to escape potential violence. Police on horseback dispersed the crowds. By evening, 9 people had been arrested. Britain's Interior Minister is calling on authorities to hunt down those responsible for the disorder. Suella Braverman says the ringleaders should be locked up. Anna Kui from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
More people in southern Norway have been forced from their homes as the country faces more flooding. Authorities say 4,000 people have now been evacuated as rivers continue to swell. Rani Bayuga has more.
This is how bad the situation in Norway has become. Watch as this home in the village of Hemsedal is swept away by the raging waters in the river. Continued heavy rain has triggered flooding and landslides. The rising water levels caused a hydroelectric dam to collapse, sending a cascade of water downstream, flooding many communities. The water has washed out roads and prompted officials to suspend train service. Parts of the country remain in the dark as crews try to restore power. Even though the rain has stopped, authorities warn of more flooding as water flows toward low-lying regions. Damage is estimated at more than $100 million. That's more than 5.6 billion pesos. Ronnie Bayuga for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
At least 27 people from sub-Saharan Africa have died in the desert after being expelled from Tunisia towards the Libya border. Libyan border guards found the bodies in a vast area of the desert to the south of the northern crossing. Reports say that the refugees and migrants had been forced to walk for days without water, food, or shelter under the hot 40 degrees Celsius temperature. Tunisia began expelling black African migrants and asylum seekers in July after days of violence in the port city of Sfax. Libyan border guards and rights groups accused Tunisia of expelling refugees and migrants into a futureless wilderness where an average of 150 people a day cross into Libya. Meanwhile, Tunisia's Ministry of the Interior denies dumping refugees and migrants in the desert. President Kais Syed has described the reports as misinformation aimed at discrediting the country. Thousands of migrants who had been living in Tunisia have tried to leave for Europe after Syed announced a crackdown on them in February, saying their presence was part of a plot to change Tunisia's demographic makeup.
A concert by American rapper Travis Scott at Rome's ancient Circus Maximus resulted in around 60 people needing medical treatment. Archaeologists also voiced concerns about concerts at the historic site and rappers' fans causing multiple 1.3 magnitude tremors. The 32-year-old artist opened his Utopia tour at the Italian capital's monumental site, which was once the empire's chariot racecourse, to a crowd of around 60,000 eager fans. Travis Scott's Circus Maximus event in Rome has renewed concerns about hosting concerts at the historical site after the rapper's 60,000-strong crowd created enough buoyant movement to register a 1.3 magnitude earthquake. Joining Scott on stage was hip-hop veteran Kanye West, which caused an even bigger ruckus as it marked his return to the scene after almost a 3-year performing hiatus. Things spiraled out of control after a suspected pepper spray incident, leaving dozens of fans injured and approximately 60 people in need of medical treatment. A 14-year-old was also hospitalized after falling from a 4-meter height trying to gate crash the venue. This is not the first time one of Scott's concerts has resulted in tragedy. Back in 2021, his infamous Astroworld concert in Houston, Texas, led to a crowd rush that left 10 dead and dozens injured.
How do you tell the story of a genre of music that sparked a movement that slowly turned into a culture? Well, we're here to tell you the story of hip-hop. Vin Pasqua has the breakdown.
In the 1970s, the Bronx paved the way for a new type of music, a combination of soul and jazz with a disco-type rhythm. What people saw as a new genre of music, other people saw as a form of innovation, and others started living as a culture. DJs laid the foundations of a beat that masters of ceremonies would talk over. Initially used as an accompaniment track to welcoming spills, soon evolved into what we know today as rapping. The combination of blues, funk, and soul slowly evolved into what others would call rhythm and poetry, or what we know today simply as hip-hop. By the mid-1980s, the hip-hop industry was a small community making big business, as audiences around the country were primed by the commercial release of recordings from countless artists during a wave of soon-to-be global stars arrived. Run DMC, LL Cool J, and the Beastie Boys. Hip-hop became a countrywide phenomenon. By the 90s, it was all over the world, seeping into global mainstream radio, thanks to artists like Tupac, Shakur, and Dr. Dre, Biggie Smalls and Sean Diddy Combs, Bad Boy, and Death Row. It became the center of American pop music, despite resistance from those convinced rock was destined to forever reign supreme. Into the 2000s, the genre's power center shifted from the coast to the south, where the genre was flourishing to the major labels. They created new lingo and song structures around it. Hip-hop was becoming a widely shared language with numerous dialects. All the while, the genre was expanding, becoming more commercially successful and inescapable. Each year, it became one of the cornerstones of pop music. In the past 20 years, hip-hop has been responsible not only for some of the biggest pop music of the era, from Drake, Kanye West, and Jay-Z, but its core has become an open source for performers in other genres to borrow from, which they did and still do widely. hip-hop became a crucial touchpoint for country music, reggaeton, hard rock, K-pop, and so much more. Commemorating it is really just a way of insisting on its importance, its stability, and its future. Hip-hop is not going anywhere because it's constantly evolving and adapting. Vin Pasqua dropping the mic for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, Russia successfully launches its Luna 25 moon mission. Rev Major 2023 Esports League kicks off in the Philippines. And Taylor Swift leaves SoFi Stadium with a major announcement. Catch more news in business, tech, sports, and entertainment when we return.
Dito, ang inyong sumbong siguradong may respondeng katapat. Hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong, sino man ang nangangailangan. Exclusive! Mga residenteng nangangamba sa pagtagilid ng poste sa kanilang lugar sa Dasmariñas, Cavite, nagparesponde.
Kailan pa po nila aaksyonan kung kailan po may mamamatay na?
At grupo ng mga photographers at videographers nagsama-sama para tulungan ang mga batang kalye at mga nangangailangan. Ang Team Kapitik ating kilalanin. At responding ka-Kings, umarangkada na libo-libong papremyo at sorpresa ihahatid ng Kings Empire Corporation.
Yung pagtulong, priceless. Kahit ba sabihin mo ganito lang yung amount na tinulong mo, pero pag galing sa puso mo, yung tatanggap, sobrang na-appreciate nila yun.
Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi, ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
A major British household goods company has collapsed under a mountain of debt. Wilco's financial troubles have put the jobs of more than 12,000 people at risk, Danica Lee reports.
Wilco operates 400 stores in the UK as well as selling items online. An administrator is now handling Wilco's affairs and will try to salvage some parts of the business. If the company can't be saved, its assets will be liquidated. For now, the stores remain open and staff will continue to be paid. The union representing the company's workers blames poor management for the collapse. The collapse comes at a time when customers and businesses alike in Britain are trying to cope with high inflation and rising interest rates. The discount household goods chain has been around for more than 90 years. Danica Lee for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
On Friday, Russia launched the Luna 25 craft to the moon. Russia has launched its first mission to the moon since 1976 without assistance from the European Space Agency. The launch took place at 2:10 a.m. Moscow time on Friday at the Vostochny Cosmodrome in the Far East. The craft, which weighs approximately 800 kilograms or 1,750 pounds, is expected to reach the moon's surface on August 23 and is due to reach lunar orbit in 5 days. Russia is currently on a space race with India, who launched a lunar observer on July 14 2014. Both countries' lunar modules are headed for the moon's south pole, not the usual equatorial zone, and are expected to land on the moon just about the same time. According to Russian space agency Roscosmos, Lunar 25 is tasked to take and analyze soil samples and conduct long-term scientific research.
The Philippines is preparing for Southeast Asia's hypest fighting game event, Rev Major, for its 2023 edition. The premier tournament runs from September 30th to October 1st in Pasay City. The event showcases 7 games including Tekken 7, Street Fighter 6, Guilty Gear Strive, The King of Fighters 15, Dragon Ball Fighters, Mortal Kombat 1, and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Meanwhile, Rev Major Philippines organizes the Road to Rev Major 2023, a community tourney ahead of the main event. Meanwhile, in the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup, Spain has defeated the Netherlands to reach the World Cup semifinals for the first time. This after teenager Salma Parayuelo scored an extra time winner as Spain beat the Netherlands 2-1. Over a tense 90 minutes in Wellington full of incident, Mariona Caldente scored an 81st minute penalty for Spain, only for Stephanie van der Graat to equalize in added time. The Netherlands had the better chances in extra time, going close twice through Beerenstein before conceding the decisive goal as penalties loomed. With the quarterfinals seemingly headed for penalties, the 19-year-old Parayuelo produced a brilliant solo finish in the 111th minute to put Spain into the last 4. Spain will now face Sweden or Japan on Tuesday, while the tournament is over for the Dutch, beaten finalists 4 years ago.
NET25 and Regal Entertainment Incorporated have joined forces for a film dubbed The Senior Citizen Rom-Com, Monday first screening coming this 30th of August. Prepare to be swept away by the timeless magic of cinema as the incredible ensemble featuring the likes of the legendary Gina Alahar and the accomplished Ricky Davao grace the scene. The film also stars award winners Ruby Ruiz and Soliman Cruz and popular artists like Alan Abrenica and Che Ramos, among others. This collaboration between Net25 and Regal Entertainment is a testament to their shared commitment to quality entertainment. Net25 President Cesar Vallejos Ramos and Regal Entertainment COO Rosel Monteverde are united in their appreciation and trust for this groundbreaking venture as Net25's first ever film production. Mark your calendars and look forward to the film that's set to touch your hearts and bring a smile to your faces.
I'd like to invite everyone to watch Monday, first screening coming this August 30 in cinemas nationwide sa Philippines.
Nas and Lil Wayne have added new distinctions to their decorated resumes after being inducted into Billboard's newfound Hip Hop Hall of Fame. The pair's induction was announced during the publication's 2023 R&B Hip Hop Power Player event, which doubled as a celebration of hip hop's 50th anniversary. Lil Wayne took the stage to accept the award, during which he added a quick caveat about his current career. Nas also graced the podium and said that he didn't start rapping for the accolades, but because of his genuine love for the music. The event also recognized hip hop's new generation, with Ice Spice being crowned Rookie of the Year. Nas and Lil Wayne serve as the first inductees into Billboard's Hip Hop Hall of Fame, which comes after calls from multiple rappers for such an institution to be started. Taylor Swift had a very special parting gift for her fans during the final stage of her Eras Tour concert in California. Catherine Ortula has the scoop.
Taylor Swift made a big announcement to release 1989 Taylor's version on October 27 during the final Eras Tour concert in California. The pop legend performed for the 6th night at SoFi Stadium in Inglewood, and she surprised her fans with the news of re-recording. Swift's re-recording album, also known as Taylor's Version series, aims to regain her control and ownership to her past music recordings.
It's something that I've been planning for a really long time. And I think instead of just like telling you about it, I think I'll just sort of show you.
Taylor originally released 1989 in 2014. That includes 13 song tracks on the standard album and 16 tunes on the deluxe version. This record album contained some of her hit songs like Shake It Off, Blank Space, and Style. She wrote in her Instagram account that there are additional 5 tracks and notes it as her most favorite re-recording. The 1989 Taylor's version will include the 5 unreleased songs, with 21 songs in total. Catherine Ertula for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
She really is that biggest star.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Swiftie, so I'm excited for that.
To end the week, here's a quote from arguably one of the most influential rappers of all time, Nasir bin Oludara Jones, or better known as Nas. The things that I have said when I was young and curious, I respect those as growing pains. Even if you make mistakes, go back to those things, your not so great moments, because those are your truest moments. Those are your human moments.
I love how he said those are your human moments, because this past week I've really been thinking about all of the mistakes I've made when I was a little bit younger and got embarrassed about them. But now it's a great reminder to know that that's what makes us human.
Exactly. And what we are right here, right now, is a sum total of all our experiences. I don't think you can drop any.
That's true.
Or else things would have
And
turned
we're
out
going to go through so
differently.
much more, right?
That's so true.
Well, happy weekend, everybody. That's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Gianna Llanes.
And I am Nina Richielago Flores. Happy weekend, everyone. This is Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.